Good day all, RobotnikHolmes here. And usually to start off a video, I'd go into detail about the source material, maybe even bring up the history of the game, but really, Sonic Triple Trouble isn't that important. It was a side game released on the Sega Game Gear. Hexbot, can you maybe... yeah, there we go. Yeah, I don't think the game warrants an in-depth analysis, although it does have one selling point. It was one of the first games that starred this goober. Yeah, that quirky side villain that sometimes appears in Sonic-related media. We know him as Nack the Weasel, known in the original localization as Fang the Sniper. Fun fact, he was designed by Shinichi Higashi, forgive me if I'm butchering the name there, an art student and character designer who was picked up by Sega shortly after he became interested in the blue mascot's creation. Wow, never stop dreaming, creative guys. Anyway, more on the actual character. Nack is certainly a fan favourite, despite his minor character status. Be it either from his cool-looking design, his personality as a doofy treasure hunter who always has things go tits up for him, or just his freaking cool name. Come on, Fang the Sniper. Fang the Sniper. Who would want to play as a freaking sniper in a relatively family-friendly video game? Alongside his first appearance in the game, so was his debut in the world of comic books in the Sonic Triple Trouble adaptation, published by Archie Comics. This is the third in a series of single-issue specials, so how did they handle the ludicrously competent side villain? Well, that's what we're going to handle in this video, folks. So buckle up, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between. Today, I'm going to analyse this fricking thing, Sonic Triple Trouble. The cover for this special, in my honest opinion, is pretty good, honestly. It was drawn by Spaz and Mikado Keijo, half of whom have never been lacking in talent when it comes to these things. It's got all the important characters from the game, because, you know, the title Triple Trouble, it's meant to refer to Sonic having a scuffle with Knuckles and all these other dudes. Well, Knuckles in particular, because they always seem to be getting into fights in these comics. Like, every time they meet. Oh, what's this? Wow, you guys are really acting surprised to see this. Even though in every special I've analysed they've kind of done the same thing, have they not? Yeah, whatever, it's probably just like out of context from the actual comic. But anyway, true to the intro of the game, Dr. Robotnik is shown to have one of the mystical Chaos Emeralds in his possession. The big bad is proclaiming that he has the most powerful power source in all of the world, when his evil sidekick, not Snively, mucks up the controls for the power inducer. This has quite a chaotic effect, leading Dr. Robotnik to run for cover, and of course, Crabmeat gets freaking trashed. It wouldn't be a Gallagher story without that happening, the sadistic bugger. But yeah, crap, the Chaos Emerald has split into two pieces, and scattered themselves on the far reaches of Mobius. God damn, I guess that's the plot for this main story, eh? Not wanting to go out and search for them himself, the big bad decides to call up bounty hunters R Us, in hopes of employing someone to do his dirty work for him, as well as stop it from falling into the hands of his nemesis. Man, remember when Toys R Us was a thing? How times have changed. Meanwhile, in the knothole kitchens, Sonic the Hedgehog is eating his favourite food in all the world, messy-looking hamburgers, until suddenly he and Tails are brought to the attention of a tracking machine that Rota built. They sense one half of the Chaos Emerald, whose power reading is off the charts. It's so grand in its power that the moment it lands in the midst of the Great Forest, it does something really funky. It makes an entirely new zone. Well, I say zone, but I'm assuming they mean like a different dimension, because, you know, zones in the games were just different areas. It also looks all crazy looking and vaguely reminds me of the Yellow Submarine. What's Sonic gonna do? I mean, last time there was a dangerous new zone appearing, he just waltzed on in there and, oh, yep, he's at it again. Looks like the blue bugger is going on another solo mission into the unknown. But little does he know that he's being tracked by a peculiar purple-armed figure. Clearly it's Nack the Weasel, but what's with the dust explosion behind him? I guess it's meant to show how menacing and awesome he is, but it's clearly making him regret being in there. Also, why is he in silhouette? We see him on the cover, there's no need to hide this. In the meantime, it cuts to Knuckles the Echidna, enjoying himself on Angel Island while the dude soaks in the sun. There's a bit of a different attitude to him. He's all calm and happy. You'd think he just sticks by a magic rock all day, but nope. But oh dear, he suddenly realizes that that's no sun. It's a funky looking green light. And that ain't gonna threaten his island while he's standing on it. Yeah, there's the Knuckles we've come to expect. The red bloke realizes that the strange meteor is heading right towards the mountainside. It doesn't crash into it so much as burrow itself into the mountain's surface, and the dude decides to go check it out. Knuckles soon realizes that it's a Chaos Emerald, but in that moment he's swept up into a mysterious rock slide. God damn it, Knuckles, you know this island like the back of your massive glove hand, and yet you don't know when to retreat when a mountain starts shaking? Anyway, back to Sonic. He runs into what appears to be a circus tent, set up only to travel to this new zone that the Chaos Emerald created. A tad suspicious if you ask me, but hey, let's all go to the colourful tent to get ourselves killed. While the Hedgehog rushes into the mysterious tent, little does he know that he's being tracked by the mercenary Dr. Robotnik hired. He's also got this yellow contraption, to which he'll use to track Sonic as he goes into the zone. And you know what? You can say that literally, because when Sonic enters the tent, he stumbles onto the setting of the game, and just breezes through each zone like they're no thing. And gotta admit, I wasn't quite expecting this clear connection to the game, nor was I expecting them to try and fit the entirety of the zones into just a couple of pages. The illustrations are surprisingly accurate to the levels you go through in the games, except maybe, what the hell, Meta Jun Sura Zone? I think they're just misspelling it there, because in the game it was clearly Metal Jungle's. Oh, never mind. What was it with this game and its weird naming conventions? Either way, Sonic goes through all the levels and beats the game quicker than I can cook my pizza, even defeating Eggman? What is this, an alternate version of the main villain? Don't think about it too much. And lo and behold, the Chaos Emerald piece is found at the end, with the blue hero running along and intending to snatch it. And he does actually. But of course, this is where the Weasley mercenary comes in, and he fricking shocks Sonic into unconsciousness. He also finally fully reveals himself, while also wielding not a sniper rifle, but some typical sci-fi looking weapon to shock the hero with. Sodding lame. Anyway, Dr. Robotnik orders the dude to go and get the other half of the Chaos Emerald, with the villain being persuaded to double the price just to make Nack do his dirty work. Man, Nack, you sure have some balls to be this maliciously conniving towards the literal dictator of the planet. So, it's off to Angel Island with him and the knocked out Sonic, no doubt unaware of its fierce red protector. And speaking of which, I bet you're wondering what happened with Knuckles. But I warn you, it's pretty out there, even for this comic standards. Are you ready? You good to go? Well, good, because Knuckles is revealed to have been rescued by these masked dinosaur guys, who are apparently mythical deities known only as the Ancient Walkers. They apparently choose to not properly speak with the Echidna, and instead draw murals on the wall. It's a bit much for Knuckles to interpret, but when you boil it down, all they're really trying to tell him is that half of the Chaos Emerald burrowed into the mountain because it was attracted to the full one that powers the island. You know, the not Master Emerald of the comic. But apparently, if the half and the full emerald were to collide, there would be a devastating explosion of atomic proportions. Yeah, that symbol doesn't lie, I know exactly what that means. Wanting to stop this mess from happening, Knuckles demands they bring him back to Angel Island immediately, which they do so by making him smell what I can only assume is a bowl of, God, I don't know, Ken Bender's crappy stories. So, Knuckles is back in one piece, and the very first thing he does upon regaining consciousness is to lie in wait and then beat the crap out of Nack the Weasel's aircar. Gosh, for a world-renowned bounty hunter, you sure don't know the one rule of Angel Island. The number one rule, don't fuckles with Knuckles. Oh, and also Sonic's still in the vehicle, you brat. Look, he's even starting to drown in the water. But thankfully he regains consciousness and spins his way out of the life or death situation. He's also left really cross. I mean, rightfully so, I suppose, but god damn. Is this going where I think it's going? Oh yes, it's time for the inevitable misunderstanding and confrontation. Both of these guys think the other one is to blame for this mess, and of course, this leads to another short fight between the two. It's not bad, honestly. They both appear to be at even odds, and Knuckles even spins his knuckles like they're fricking miniature Sonic spin dashes, which doesn't make any sense whatsoever, but at least it looks cool. However, at this exact moment, they both hear the voice of Dr. Robotnik from the conked out Nack. So they both instantly decide to sync up with their fricking galaxy brains, and the two rivals work together to make it look like Nack is still conscious. It's a really silly scene, but hey, it's at the expense of Nack, so it fits. Anyway, they find the other half of the Chaos Emerald in his backpack, and Knuckles remembers that he needs to make sure the other half of the emerald doesn't collide with the one in the island, so that you know, nobody sodding explodes to death. What proceeds is Sonic and Knuckles both going down into the secret chutes of the central chamber, where they find that the other half of the magic rock has almost reached its destination of destruction. In one swift moment, Knuckles decides to click the two halves of the emerald together, and that causes a stinging green light show to occur. It's so bright they can barely see. And what happens after that? What is to come of these heroes? Well, it disappears. Yeah, it just poofs out of existence, and the two find themselves back where they were on the surface. Where's the emerald? How is Angel Island still floating? Well, no time to think about that now. Sonic just decides to take Nack in his vehicle back down to Mobius, and he and Knuckles depart from their rivalry once again. Yeah, it just ends like that. Sonic just buggers off without a second thought, and Knuckles is like, "Ooh, I'll get you, Sonic, I think." That was a bit of a hasty conclusion, was it not? Oh, but wait, in an epilogue, we see the Chaos Emerald arrive before the Ancient Walker guys, who await the Chaos Emerald to reappear, because apparently it's foretold in a prophecy and is a part of an endless cycle. But honestly, I don't get what any of this means, nor do I understand who these godlike dinosaurs are meant to be. Yeah, well, that was just the first of one of 3 stories, so let's get a move on. Story 2 is a little tale involving Sonic's sidekick, Tails. In Submersible Rehearsal, Tails finds that Rotor has invented him a fully functional submarine. That was certainly nice of the dude. I wasn't expecting the Sea Fox to make such an early appearance. Wasn't it from that Game Gear game, Tails Adventure? Oh, wait, no, it was in Sonic Triple Trouble too. It was sort of an item that Tails could use in the water level. Anyway, while Tails has a whole new vehicle to use, Rotor was told specifically not to let the kid ride in it, as he is far too young to be piloting such a vehicle. I mean, regardless of the fact that Tails has been shown to be a pilot in the comic. Man, this really isn't going well for the kid. He's got all this pent-up irritation about being treated as the kid's sidekick of the group. I mean, he's still a freedom fighter after all, but the others treat him like an inexperienced young'un. Because, well, let's face it, he is at this point. But hold up, what's with this random seagull dude? Well, apparently, there's this big old ruckus going on underwater, with one of Dr. Robotnik's mechs going about and repairing the underwater roboticizer. Sorry, I mean robot maker. Yeah, I'm never letting that go. If a thing's got a name, it's got a name for a reason, guys. There's no need to change it. This is the perfect time for Tails to use the sub to save the ocean, powering it only by using the oil from the seagull. Did he agree to that? How did that happen? And Tails soon arrives at the same location introduced back in issue number 1 of the comic. However, there's this big mean octopus dude who intends on converting the aquatic folk into robots. Also, his name is Octobot, and well, that's the most interesting thing about him. Also, look, it's Mr. Krabs! What are you doing being all wrapped up in tentacles, Mr. Krabs? What the hell is wrong with me? Anyway, Tails comes in with the Sea Fox submarine to save the day. He slams right into him with the drill end, which should theoretically tear him to pieces. But this is a comic for kids, so don't expect anything destructive like that, even to louse goofy robots. Well, unless you're a robot named Crabmeat. Tails proceeds to send a torpedo to the underwater roboticizer, blowing it up in the process. The day seems to be saved, but Octobot, being the dumb, useless bad guy that he is, simply swears revenge on the Fox as he slowly drifts away. You could just kill him then and there. You got like 8 hands, you could just freaking... In the end, Tails reunites with the seagull guy he met earlier, and all is well and good. Yeah, that's all I have to say on that one. The third and final story, First Contact, is a story about Knuckles. You see, he's here giving Vector a lift around the hazardous area of the floating island. Why is he being a gliding echidna taxi to this dude he barely knows? I haven't a clue, and I doubt this writing will be insightful enough for me to care. Knuckles senses a peculiar smell in the air, and he realises that it's coming from this rock on the floor. Wow, I guess someone just lasered their name into it. That's one way of applying graffiti to the environment. Archimedes! Who is that guy? Well, that's definitely what Knuckles wants to know, considering he didn't even see anyone chisel his name onto that rock. Then the echidna encounters Cat Weasel! You know, Cat Weasel! Knuckles' old friend who he encounters on all of his treks. This is the first time we've seen this goddamn bird, and I don't even know why he's even here. He's also not very helpful at all, and when Knuckles asks him if he's seen anything, he just says, "Nope, nothing happening over here, Knuckles, old boy." So we just kind of wasted a whole page there on nothing. Unhappy with receiving zero information, Knuckles continues forward, only to be attacked by something hot. Yeah, it's one of those robots we saw in Knuckles' debut issue. I guess these robots are just still hanging around at this point. Also, that other robot that Sonic trashed in the Sonic and Knuckles tie-in is also here. But, well, I guess you gotta give Knuckles some conflict somehow. You can't just have him wander around and talk to himself the entire story, like, you know, the last time that happened. The first thing Knuckles thinks about is Robotnik, and then he assumes that he is this Archimedes guy. A bit of a jump there, but hey, whatever distracts him enough to have him knocked out into the next scene transition. Down into the Chaos Emerald Chamber, Knuckles is met by a voice. It reveals himself indeed as Archimedes, but he can't reveal himself and make himself easier for Knuckles. No, he has to stay hidden to leave the readers guessing for another 3 issues. I mean, because that's part of the lesson. Knuckles is left wondering. And don't worry, that's not the first time I'm going to be saying that. This happens a lot in these Knuckles-centric stories. And he's just left asking questions, alone into the echo chamber of the Crystal Cave. Later on, Knuckles mopes on a dark mountaintop, and he's also met by Vector, the only other coloured object in this fricking panel. Yeah, the story ends on a cliffhanger, with Knuckles not having learnt anything, except for the name that would supposedly be important later. Blech. Well now, if there's anything I could say about these stories, is that they were very whimsical. Like, the stories still had conflict in them, and the characters still interacted with each other, and the first story had this plot of a catastrophe that the heroes had to fix, but it always had this looming sense that nothing in this entire issue was taken with a hint of seriousness. But honestly, this all points to the main writer of the special. Gallagher's usual light-hearted and extremely silly tone appeared frequently in both Triple Trouble and the Tails story. It's not bad. I take it over drab non-action stories any day. The characterization was, as usual, not exactly used to its full potential. Everyone was just being either bland or making jokes. Sonic and Knuckles were the good guys who worked together despite being rivals, and Dr. Robotnik was the loud bad guy who does other people to do his job for him. But there were a few exceptions that kinda surprised me. For one thing, Nack the Weasel's introduction was nicely handled. He's portrayed as this competent bounty hunter that talks all big, but when he goes out into the field, he's easily knocked out and kinda loses all credibility as a mercenary. I actually have no problem with this, because, well, that's how he was like in the source material, an opportunist bad guy who often has his plans blow up in his face. So, yeah, he was accurate. Though, I kind of wish the comic did more than just build him up and then have him freaking knocked out and used as a gag for the heroes to mess with. The other bit of characterization I rather liked was how Tails was portrayed in the second story. For the first half, we got to see a side of him that the comics have barely touched upon at this point, that he dislikes being seen as a kid. He's usually just this side character, and sometimes we see him be a huge fanboy of the speedy blue hedgehog. I'm glad the writer decided to show more of him, even if all of this is only on like 1 page. The story and characters shown in First Contact were, well, if you know my thoughts on Pender's writing and his constant cliffhangers, you can probably already tell that I didn't much care for it. Knuckles is always used to forward the plot, and not in a good way, because it's usually just by him running into a random character who doesn't amount to much, talking out loud about how he isn't going anywhere, or just literally being railroaded into the next location for the plot's convenience. So, regardless of its downsides, I think the stories overall were just a mixed bag. Like, the narrative wasn't boring or lackluster, and some of the characters I actually found both humorous and intriguing. It's gotta count for something, right? I'm gonna give the story and characters a score of 3. We had 3 different artists who worked on the visuals for each story. Man, this must have been quite an undertaking. For Triple Trouble, Manic was the dude who drew the art for all the slapstick you'd come to expect when he and Gallagher come together. I'd compliment his skills at making funny expressions, especially when people get knocked out and left unconscious, which happens quite a lot in this issue, funnily enough. However, while his character proportions are on point sometimes, the story calls for a lot of intricate details in the background and background objects, and I'm sad to say that Manic is definitely not the best artist when it comes to these things. His backgrounds tended to be half-arsed most of the time, because, you know, character and comedy comes first. One scene I feel he really missed the mark, creative-wise, was the scene where Knuckles, in his dazed state, encounters the Ancient Walkers. They explain the plot to him through drawings on the wall, but in the comic, we see them as cartoony drawings against a blank background. Like, there's nothing mystical about it. I mean, I guess it's to make it easier for the readers to understand, but they really could have made it better. Like, seriously, if you're gonna draw it in a way that makes it easy to follow, but also have it hit the mark with Knuckles trying to figure it out for himself, have it, I don't know, actually printed on a cave wall? Like, have it look spiritual and vague, like these silent figures would probably draw them, but have Knuckles' head pop in to figure it out and allow the readers to know what's going on. Like, if they went with anything like this, it would look much better visually. Cripes, that was quite a tangent there. Sorry, let me talk about the other two artists while we wrap up. Art Mawini was the dude who did the Tails story. His stuff is marginally better than Manic's, visuals-wise, but the action here was rather underwhelming for me, as were the characters' mostly stilted expressions. Tails has the same face for most of the story, except for the moments in the beginning with the before-mentioned character moments. Not his best stuff here overall. Pender's art? Blow me. Nah, I'll admit, I'm impressed that he gave us not 2, but 3 different background settings to watch Knuckles wander around and fight random robots in. Still doesn't excuse how he draws Knuckles with one expression in every page he's in though. How were you this incompetent, dude? But yeah, I wasn't much of a fan of the art. Maybe Manic and Mawini were losing their edge, or maybe I'm just being a grouch for expecting them to improve as the issues went on. Either way, I'll have to award the art with a badge of honour for trying. Which is to say, a 2. Alright, final score for Sonic Triple Trouble. It's not much, just an average 5 out of 10. That's kind of what I was expecting. Despite introducing new characters like Nack and having harmless stories about fun and whimsical zones, it still didn't really hold up for me, I'm afraid. And that was the third of the special one-offs, everybody. Again, I'm terribly sorry for missing this one out. And I bet you guys are just itching for me to get back into the mainline comics. Don't worry, I will do that, because in the next video, expect me to analyse issues number 27 and 28. Both of them were written by Ken Penders, and on his own this time. So you know it's going to be high quality. Oh boy. Wish me luck, folks. You have my thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you soon, guys.
Are you feeling it now, Mr. Krabs?
I'm feeling a warm spot.